Well, hello, everybody.
How are we doing?
Hello.
Everybody on their high?
Still there.
Yeah. That sounds epic. I mean, don't we wish sometimes that you could kind of return back from such a high, or more importantly, walk in and like see the team on a high and kind of like starting to dwindle and go down that direction. I had a real blast with some of you. I got to meet a lot of your teams, which was super fun. And it's interesting to get to be around when there's already a legacy of like masterminds, and then all of a sudden it's like there's a lot of cool people that are around here, and then you start meeting the new masterminders that are signing up and they're coming this way, and you're like, oh my goodness. If I compare you to where you were and compare them to all of us and what happened with our practices, it's kind of a fun opportunity to watch things grow. So that was pretty cool. So how's everybody doing? Everybody back home safe? Not too many complications as far as travel back?
No, not on our end anyway. Our operations girl missed her flight. She got a little too happy at happy hour.
Too happy on that side of it. Understandable.
We were like, where in Tarnation are you? And she just never showed.
And then she woke up like,
yep. It's like, oh my goodness.
that is funny. What about so have you hired that candidate that I sent you? Okay.
Yeah, so she was as of last week, she was on her third week with us, I think.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Great profile.
She's new, but she's definitely got value for sure.
And she got some energy power for sure. She's ready to blow and
go. She does. We're learning. We're at the point now. Obviously, she's fairly decent high A, as am I. So we're learning how to manage that relationship because she has a lot of experience too, and she knows a lot. So it's learning the ways that we like to do it, and sort of easing into our rhythm and our cadence and sort of how we want to do things. And I think once she gets that, it's really
there you go.
Off. Yeah.
When I was sitting there with the two of you chatting after that lecture, I could tell that presence. You got these two presences and they're two IAs and they're talking. And I would advise you that when you have that strong of an individual, you need more clarity with those individuals than anybody else. So whenever you're having a conversation, you're like, I don't want to come off too harsh, or I don't want to hold somebody back. And you need to have those conversations. Okay. Those are hard conversations, but they're like, you know what? I love your ideas. You got 10 ideas. I want you to focus on these, plus also learn the environment, right? Internal knowledge about a company or about a team is the most important knowledge we need to apply other concepts from experience to move them over. And so you got to be really careful with somebody like that because they have such experience that they're coming in and they're like, well, this is what we did over there. And so we applied it over here. Well, we all know that all our practices are slightly different for a lot of reasons, right?
Yeah.
And it tends to be with the people that are already in there, the way we like to do things and the environment, the geographical location. So you've got to be real picky about those. Just be very, very clear and don't hold back. Just say, hey, I'm real thankful, appreciate them for their ideas and their thoughts. And say, I'm writing those down. I want to get to these, but we're slowly going to move in, make sure that we're applying it under, internal knowledge, that we know what it is that's going on. So I thought about that on the flight back after I talked to both y'all, and something I want to make sure we got across.
Yeah, no, that's super, super helpful. And it will make a ton of sense. Honestly, I think it would help both of us. Because she will know, she'll understand what needs to be done and how, and it will allow us to feel comfortable in terms of the directions that we're going and where we're going. So, no, that's awesome. Yeah.
Very, very good. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, from the summit. Was everybody? Will, you didn't make it, did you?
No, I didn't make it.
How you been, my man?
I'm doing okay. It's been like 3 or 4 months since I've been on a call with you guys.
I was about to say, I was like, hey, I feel like something's going on here.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's just bandwidth stuff, but no, I'm going back through all of the calls on Mighty Network. So, but yeah, things are good overall.
Good, my man. Well, I know that, more importantly, our business doesn't matter as much when we have to put in that focus and that drive on our personal lives and those types of things that are going on. So, rely on us for anything you need, even if it's just a conversation on the side or any love and support you need. When we all have a lot of things going on, that has to take priority. And so do not feel any level of guilt or concern on that. I mean, that's the more important piece. So don't worry about it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to shout out to Will too, because I follow his practice on Instagram, and I don't know if you've hired somebody new to do your marketing, but your marketing is bae.
Freaking
So
I will tell her that you said so, because that is absolutely not me. I will tell her that, yes.
The machine
good
is
stuff.
going and going over there. I love it when all of a
Yeah.
sudden you realize that it just start like shooting fireworks. You're like, whoa, 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 what's going on over there? Something's up.
It's
Yeah,
really
it's
good.
fine.
It's
I told
really
her I don't
creative.
know.
I like it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things that she does on a monthly basis, is she actually writes on the windows.
That is awesome.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Because it faces the main highway
that.
right there, so she like creates something that's for the month, and then she'll paint it all over the windows. So it's like summer vibes only, and there's like teeth that are sitting on the beach.
I love
That's
that.
That's funny.
I
So
love it.
amazing, dude. I love it. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the stuff you need is someone to get us out of our rut, like life happens, things are going on. I mean, how impactful is that with everything you got going on? You walk towards your building and it's like, they've used my beautiful building that I've built and now they're using it as a billboard. Like you made that happen. Well job on, inspiring somebody to do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, very cool.
How's everybody else been?
Good. Tell us about some of your aha moments from the summit or anything like that, so we can get going and give Will some of the craziness that we went through up there.
Don't worry, Will, you didn't miss anything. Summit was blah. That's fine. You're good. You're
Typical
good.
superficial, whatever.
Yeah, no FOMO. No FOMO to be had. None. Zero.
Sure.
I think
I
the
brought my team up, my whole team, and walking around the office for the last couple of days, I have heard a lot of verbiage from the summit that has been awesome, because I will hear phrases and I'm like, where have I heard that before? And then,
Right.
it's a podcast or a lecture, the part of the seminar that we went to. So I think my team returned to our office super energized, and I'm thankful for that, because they now understand if I close my office door to take a phone call, this is what I'm doing. And if I come to a huddle and I, discuss a concept, or we have an office meeting and I discuss a concept, they know where it's coming from, and now they understand the why. And I think that they will be, as a team, I think, more receptive to the changes or the tweaks, just the subtle shifts that we're making to make our practice better and more productive and happier and more fulfilling. So it was a lot of time well spent. So
What a
Thank you.
different
Thanks to
reflection that is, right? And like coming into your practice and being like, all right, here's my list I made from the summit. And I'm like, all right, I need
Yeah.
you to do this and I need you to do this. And like you start going down that road and like instead you get to come back and you're just, oh,
mhm.
it's already implemented. Okay.
Let
that's going
everybody do
on,
their
and this is
thing. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
And the commonality was like, I heard Craig and Pete say it a lot this weekend, just get out of your own way. I'd love to step back and watch the team do stuff. To me, that is fulfilling. So
Yeah. Talk about ownership too. Like sometimes you don't really have the kind of people who want to say, well, if they're considering a job somewhere else, do you think they ever have the opportunity for that level of ownership? I mean, that's just, especially not right off, right? So any kind of turnover almost gets squashed so abundantly when you include them in CE, because they feel like, well, they've got an ownership process and they're not thinking about, all those other components. They're just saying, hey, I got personal fulfillment because I'm implementing something that I learned and now I'm applying it and I'm seeing the effects of it. So really cool stuff. That makes all the difference in the world. So
mhm.
I think that was single-handedly the most impactful thing, is that the team took their own ownership from it.
Mhm.
They could not, every single one of them who came has not stopped thanking us for taking them.
there you go.
And they are the atmosphere across both practices is so electric. They're so jazzed up from all the things that they took in, seeing they never knew that in their minds, we were the only two crazy people in the world who wanted to do all these unheard of things and all these insane things. And then to see so many like-minded people who are not also trying to apply it, but have applied it and have seen the results, they're like, oh my God, they are so jazzed up. But again, Will, you didn't miss out on anything at all. We're just making the stuff up as we go.
Yeah, all of it. This is just nothing. We actually just hung out and talked about doldrums and the difficulties of everything else going on.
It's a powerful thing, man. That's going to be a staple for our team, I think, going forward, is having them come with us to Bulletproof and to other CEs as we find them, because the value is there 100%. Like, it's like Anna said, it's so different when you're trying to be like, well, this is what I learned, go do this. They came to us. We've got a couple of emails saying, hey, this is something I want to do. This is something I learned. This is something I want to apply. And the fact that it doesn't have to come from me or Julia, it's next level. It's awesome. It really is awesome. Blown away.
I don't want you to, right now we're on an emotional high because you come from a summit and you hear people talking about it. But I'd be really advisable that if you go back on your Amex cards or everything like that, and as you categorize it, you categorize all those expenses for this month and you think about the actual amount that you spent. Flights, hotels, gas, or whatever, or even dinners together and those types of things, the cocktails, and even those shots that Akpo bought for us. Put it all together, right? And then align it with, start categorizing it on how it's increased certain KPIs in regards to hygiene. You brought your hygiene, because what I can tell you, like right before the next summit, let's say Akpo, your team, but shoot, right, y'all are doing it. Let's say you're double in size by then. You got all these people, and you're like, what? Do I really need to take everybody? Because now you're thinking it's like $2,000-$3,000 a person, and you're starting to figure out. This is where you really start to know your ROI, because right now it's very emotionally powerful. And yes, you see it, but you need to calculate that influence from now to the rest of time and a lot of things. I mean, I've taken massive groups, and sometimes for us with 65 people, we'll take sections of groups where we make sure that they all go collectively, or we'll shut down one office and we'll send them. And we've got to kind of break that down sometimes. But then you have to still track the ROI. I know that sounds almost too tactical and unemotional, but it's critical to make sure that the next time it comes around and you're kind of like, oh, maybe I just need to send the leadership team. Maybe I don't need to send multiple agents, maybe that kind of thing. So it'll make a bigger impact if you can at least focus on it now when everybody's thinking about it, and then start tracking how it impacts those KPIs. Because it may come that 6 months later or 8 months later, or quote, I believe the next one is going to be in February of next year. That's less than a year away. And all of a sudden you think to yourself, well, by then, maybe those KPIs that took off start. And really, instead of you going crazy and holding accountability, all you have to do to keep that KPI up is to resend them to the Bulletproof Summit, right?
Yeah.
Or to put them on the mastermind, or, hold that accountable, whatever it is, right? But that's the mindset, right? So
makes sense. It makes a ton of sense, because you're right. Every once in a while, we were trying to do some maths on the plane. It was like, dang, this was a couple of grand per person. But when you think about what they're going to do, so you're thinking from a hygiene perspective. Now someone wants to do a lot more PerioProtect. In the past, so far, I think we've closed 2 since we got back. So that's about, we're not too expensive on that. I think we're at 500. So that's $1,000. Imagine if that continues over the next 6 months, already paid for itself. And the effect that it has on the other guys too. Our front desk lady wants to implement a whole bunch of other things too. You start to see the results right off the bat. And if you're tracking your KPIs, you will see that in black and white. You don't have to think about it, sort of woo-woo land. It's actually in black and white, and it's quite impactful.
And don't keep it to yourself, right? Like, sit down with that team and say, hey, how did you love the summit? Oh, that was so inspiring. It got me where I need. And thank you so much. Well, hey, do you want to go every year? Oh, could I? Absolutely. Let's come up with a strategy to make sure we pay for it every year. Okay. It's many PerioProtects. Go through it, like figure it out and hold them accountable. Make it part of the process. KPI needs to stay at this level. That means it's worth it. That means, we track out, make sure we transition the team to an incentive plan, or we do different things. Like, hold the accountability across the board. So it's not just you, because I think I want to get away from all of us feeling the pressures of spending money. We should allow everybody to realize, hey, you want to go on an epic trip? Do that. Go to the summit every year. In order to do that, this is what it's going to take. Boom, 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 boom. Have a lot of clarity on that.
My hygienist said that in one of the bulletproof hygiene meetings that Prayer Protect now may need genetic testing involved because it makes some patients with like a certain type of bacteria makes it worse or something. Was she accurate in saying that?
So I have heard about this, and I actually told my team to take a deeper look at that. Again, I think it's a more comprehensive perspective. We had actually done genetic testing for the last few years at our office, kind of going down that road, and we're starting to see that there are certain types of good bacteria that can also be affected by some of these things, not just the bad. That's the progress of medicine. But I'll ask for more details, and I'll ask for the hygiene team to provide some clarity and maybe write up a little something that they can put on Mighty Network so that everybody can take a look at it and see what that data was. But I heard about it. It piqued my interest as well. So I'll ask for some more details on that.
Okay,
Can we
thank
ask
you.
Teresa to take a step in on that, Lacey, and give us some clarity and see what or her or Brittany, either one would be spectacular to give us kind of a more comprehensive approach, because I haven't heard that just from him. I got it, and then somebody else had told me about it, and I said, you know what? This is the kind of thing that's going to ping us and we'll be like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? So we just need clarity on that. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, give us some of your aha and your stuff. I mean, you had a cool team there too.
Yeah, man, it was great. Just piggybacking off of what y'all are talking about, it was very similar. I had a couple folks come with me last time, but probably 3 times the number this year, and it was basically my core group that's been around for the longest. You know, some of them are longer than I've been there even. And we left everybody who's newer, like within the last year or two, at home. And they loved being able to travel like that because it was like a reward for, you know, just keeping the core. And we've done some dinners together like that too, just to like keep the core group alive. But it was so great to just have them be able to see everything, like Anna was saying, just you know, hearing it from somebody other than me, and finally connecting the dots on so many things. And just like you guys are saying, it's like just in this short time we've been back, they're, you know, saying things like, I want to be more productive in, you know, clear aligners or this area or that. And they're just like hungry for being more productive and just adding value. And it's just so cool. But I do want to figure out a way to bring the whole crew eventually. But also just pivoting a little bit on the more personal note, I found myself just like, even though I was kind of worn out by the end of it, I think Saturday afternoon, I just had this wave of energy, just felt like $1 million, and it was just, and I realized that it was just like, you know, just so much amazing energy at the whole conference, obviously, but I felt like I was finally able to recognize the progress that I had made. And I think a lot of it was conversations that I was having with new folks that I just met there. And Lacey put me in touch with one guy who was considering the mastermind, and I ended up having a handful of conversations with some new people, just, you know, unapologetically advertising the mastermind, and, you know, unprompted, and saying how much I got from it, and then just hearing their story and the questions they're wrestling with. And it was just, I was like I was having a conversation with myself a year ago.
Yeah,
And I was like, holy shit, like,
that's crazy.
you know, it was cool to just kind of be able to touch the progress or just witness the progress that I had made just in those moments. And it just got me so excited to, you know, share that as much as I can. And that was the other thing. I felt like suddenly, you know, I've gotten so much from you guys, and I felt like I'm finally getting to a place where I still have the, you know, a ton to learn, but I feel like I'm starting to get to a place where I can actually, you know, give back to somebody else or pay it forward, you know. And it just got me even more excited about the next round, signing up again. Like, where am I going to be, at the next summit, a year from now or whenever it is. It's just, I don't know. I'm even more excited about doing it again than I was the first round. So, yeah, I'm still amped about it, and I hope I stay that way for a long time. I think I will. I just feel my life is totally different, and I have all of you guys to thank for that. So,
And we put
second
in some
that.
good work.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to say too, to piggyback on what Matt was saying, when you're in the trenches, a lot of times you don't see your own self-improvement and your own progress. But and Matt, you probably feel the same way, but the people that are closest to me tell me all the time that I'm like a totally different business owner and a totally different person. And sometimes we don't recognize that in ourselves, but people recognize it in us. And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I hear that a lot too. Just they wanted me to sign up again just because they could see the difference in who I am today and before.
Yeah, it's huge.
I
I
find
feel
it
the same
interesting.
way about Bulletproof as well. I mean, I didn't make it to the summit, but there's a huge difference in who I was a year ago when I was talking about, wanting to sell a practice, and then, Craig talking me out of it, to where we are now, where I spent 2.5 weeks in Portugal last month, and we collected more money while I was gone than 2 years ago I would ever in a million years even think about that we could ever even get to. And it wasn't even done by me. So now where we are is that my production numbers have plummeted and my associates are skyrocketing, and they're like, "Are you worried about this?" And I'm like, "This is exactly what I want. This is perfect." Because this is all, the practice is running by itself, and it's not by my hands, and then I can just focus on the admin side. And so yeah, we're increasing at light speed too. But to your point, Anna, it's very easy because you look in the mirror every day, you don't see all the big changes because it's just too incremental at a 24-hour change. But in reality, if you were to look back a year ago, you realize that you've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with where you've come, where you've gone to,
You guys are making me cry. Like, this is incredible. This is why we do what we do. So thank you all for sharing.
It's so powerful because we do not see that change in us, right? We absolutely don't. And it's because the truth is we had some individuals who are new to the summit and brought their team. And, and I'll keep a lot of things confidential, but we had individuals who were in a very depressed state. They came in and they were so overwhelmed, and they came in with problems in their practice and hopes to fix different things. And then their team was actually coming up to them wanting to implement so many things, so much so that even Craig and I, we were in a hotel room with somebody who was in an increasingly depressed state and did not know that he could continue. It was a very, very extreme case scenario, but guess what? It's because he doesn't know what you all know. It's that those decisions and those fixes were little paper cuts that occurred, and that he feels like he has to go back and make tremendous changes. He doesn't have to do that. He needs to slowly make changes that over time make a massive impact. But it's the problem that we have is that we don't normally get to see those massive changes, right? That we feel like, oh, over time. But the fact that we went back, and I also don't want to use the term, but I have to use it. I want to know if anybody else felt this way. It's almost like the Bulletproof Summit for those of us who have been in it for a while, and we've been in the mastermind specifically. The mastermind is where the hard work gets done. The summit almost feels, for those of us who have been around and heard it before, almost a little superficial. It's exciting, it's energetic, it's this and that, but none of us are in those like taking massive notes and going through it. It doesn't mean that there's not a ton that we should learn or whatever, but we've almost slowed down and found this peace of saying, great, I see, I'm not going to write down a million things like I did on the first summit. These are the 5 or 10 main things I need to go back and double, triple check and implement. And you know that it's a growth marathon. It is not this, I got to sprint and fix it, because it literally put some people in a depressed state. In some ways, obviously they had some other personal things going on, But that is, I think, the bigger impact. You knew that you could implement those along the mastermind. Did anybody else feel that level of impact or that kind of surprise? Because I found a lot of us sitting outside on the balcony, hanging out together, collaborating, because we knew the impact we had together. So instead of being in some of the portions of the summit, I'm interested in hearing that.
I would agree with that 100%. It's like you said, and I think it also happened on the hygiene side too. I know we don't have hygienists on this, but our hygienist mentioned that as well. She said that for her, a lot of the things that she learned, she'd already learned through the course of the year with the hygiene program. So most of it was just top up. And I think the biggest impact for her was actually meeting the people who she's talked to, getting to spend time with them, getting to collaborate with them, ask questions, and really sort of one-on-one interact. And I think that was very, very impactful too. The other thing as well, when you were talking, Dwight, is you talk about death by 1,000 paper cuts, but the improvement too is almost similar. It's so intrinsic, like it doesn't have to be this, massive thing you do. And I think the first thing that really is the small change that the Bulletproof Mastermind does a phenomenal job doing is the mindset tweak. It's just your mindset. Like figure out where do I actually really want to go? Because everyone is fed every direction you look. And I'm not a dentist, but I've been in dentistry for almost a decade. And everywhere you look, well, you got to do that. You've got to do 1 million. You've got to do this. You've got to have this amount of practices. You've got to do that. Like, what do you mean you only want 1? What do you mean you want 5? Everyone has an opinion. If you can figure out your mindset, it's crazy how it starts to manifest itself. And all of a sudden your happiness levels it's like, oh my, I did not know this was possible. It all seems impossible until someone does it, right? And that someone who does it turns out to be you. Like, crap, I can do this. And I'm able to do this in a way that makes me happy. And it's so incredibly in fact, gosh, I'm clearly still jazzed up, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
That's spectacular.
Yeah.
That's it.
I agree with you, Dwight. And I felt like the summit for me was more of a 10,000 foot view, but I will say that for the first couple of months of the mastermind, I felt like I was almost having an out of body experience. Like, is this who I am? Can I do this? I'm being told to do all of these different things and implement all these different things. And it was, now I'm at a point after a year later and having been to 2 summits, since then, I guess over the course of the last year, I feel like I hear Craig and Pete talk and I'm like, yeah, that's what we're doing. Or yeah, I already know to do that. Or yeah, it's now it's innate for me, like it's like clockwork. And now I think the way that Craig and Pete and you, Dwight, and everybody that's on this call, I think the way that we as a group think together and talk through things. And now it's more my nature than it was a learned behavior. And I think that has been really cool to experience too.
Awesome. Incredible.
Guys, I just want to say thank you, but I do have to run because as it turns out, I still can't get rid of my kids. So practice is doing great. Kids not so much. But I'll see you guys again soon on our next call.
You got it, buddy.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Hey, Patrick, tell us a little bit about your aha moments and your times here.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I brought my 2 partners from different companies to the summit. And I mean, details are great. I think, we can all get a cookbook, but then what I really wanted them to see is just be engulfed in an environment of plentifulness. Every single doctor, I mean, Dwight, you meet a lot of doctors and a lot of associates that come through, like everyone's about like, hey, how does it benefit me? And yeah, you can be like, hey, use ParaProtect or use like 1 or 2 things. It's a cookbook, but what's more important is just learning the mindset. And just like, if you're this plentifulness person, people just gravitate towards you. And so like, for me, I'm always like, hey, like Lacey, what's your problem? Or like, Anna, what issues do you have going on right now? And like me helping others doesn't hurt me, but we all like rise together. And I would contribute my success to like helping everybody around me, whether they want the help or not. And my partners have really good, like they're really good at like doing like tactical stuff, but then they're not a leader. Like they don't want to help others around them. And seeing this environment and seeing us like communicate with everybody, it's like a brotherhood. And so like they came back fired as ever, and they're just always like the last 2 days, they're literally just meeting up with everybody. How can I improve you? How can I improve you? So that's been a pretty good aha moment to have them see everything. And it's not just a recipe or cookbook. And you know me, like I'm the guy that, hey, what's your protocol? Let me figure it out. But
Right.
if I didn't develop this mindset, this protocol, I'll just learn how to do one thing, and then the next 10 years is just that one thing.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's the good stuff, man. I mean, and what an investment by you to bring them, because you knew at some point in time, listen, you can have as many dinners out with me or as much operational time out with me, but at the end of the day, you need to see it's not just me, you know? And I think that's critically important, because a lot of people on our teams will resign to the fact, well, it's because I work with Patrick. It's because I work with Matt. It's because I get to be with Anna, and it's incredible. That's great, wonderful. And the truth is two things happen. They realize there's other people out there that are striving to make this change and who actually believe in fulfilling their teams, not just themselves. That's a big thing. But the other part of it is they also then all of a sudden realize, wow, I'm really blessed that I landed here next to this individual who actually does care. Because if they go to a local organized dentistry model, an ADA level or anything of that degree, they're not getting that level of teaching and mentorship that says, hey, by the way, doctors, leaders, business owners, you should make sure that you are creating mentorship and fulfillment for your teams. I mean, that's kind of a rarity, but the fact that they see it and that you are that person, it kind of levers you up, and they realize they go back home with some gratitude, to say the least, right?
Oh yeah, they're fired up after this last week.
Good. I love it. Brian, are you with us, my man? I saw your videos off. Do you want to share any aha moments? Or Olga, I know you're jumping in as well. If not, we can jump on a particular topic that I have. And this is also, for Lacey as it is for anybody else, but I'm terribly interested in seeing all of us have kind of seen both formats. And at this format, we had the tracks, right? So there's a bit of a component of just reflection. Like I don't want everybody to just get on a call and be like, oh yeah, anything Bulletproof does is great. We'd love to get the feedback, because some of you are getting feedback from your teams. Some of you are, I'd even heard worries about sometimes, well, you're splitting up the office managers and the doctors, and maybe they're not taking home the same information, things like that. Really interested in hearing feedback specifically regarding the tracks and how kind of we were all used to all be together and then got split up a little bit. I know I lectured at a track, Pete, Craig, everybody had different tracks and we're all over the place, but I'm really interested in kind of, did y'all find it fruitful? Be critical, give some thoughts and some ideas, because I think sometimes we're all, yes people, and we don't want to be that way. We want to create the best potential fulfillment opportunity for what the information that really needs to be brought out, not just to you, but also the team members. Curious about that.
I thought the track was an amazing idea. I got to go to what I thought was really prevalent to me. I guess one thing I wish was, I wish that everyone had their lectures out or printed out so like things that I miss in other tracks, I had access to. Because even if you send your hygienist, or like, I guess I'm also OCD, but I send, like, my doctor's going to another lecture, they're going to bring back like 10%. And I know if I went to it, I'm bringing back pages of stuff to actually execute at the end of the day too. So it was hard for me to keep, it's really hard for me to keep them accountable to the tracks that they went to, because I don't know what was spoken. They just come out, you're like, oh, they didn't teach me anything. I'm like,
right.
You didn't come out with one pearl from this track at all. And like, nope, didn't learn anything. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Are they available by video? I saw some guys recording. I didn't know if that was what that was, but.
No, those were mostly just splash videos. So Zach, my videographer guy, was just making splash videos and follow up, and things to that degree. But it is, you're kind of hitting on one of the most important questions is that Bulletproof is not like organized dentistry, and neither are the summits, right? I mean, I'm speaking at the DEO on, I guess, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like this coming up, very different conference. And it's almost modeled against most dental conferences or in other industries. You know, you go to these big network type style conferences where you've got these, you know, tons of tracks and you're all over the place. And sometimes the problem is that a lot of the fulfillment comes from the unity, and the implementation comes from the unity of the team. And so we were always used to having Bulletproof kind of all in one room. And I'm almost teetering on the push to help people kind of be critical, because I think it was an incredible summit. I think it did an incredible impact, but I really want to kind of gauge that there might be some topics we have to do together, right? And there might be other topics that maybe need to be aligned at the same time as hygiene needs to be here and this needs to be here, because they're not kind of overlapping different things. I mean, right as I walked out of mine, I had the people who were in mine who ran over to get somebody from another one and walked them over and were like, hey, can you go over there? You know, let's talk about the CI stuff. And it was just kind of certain things couldn't be on top of each other because people wanted to be split up. Is that kind of a negotiable kind of center, you know, better core, or is that something that we can strategize, or things to kind of give Lacey ideas on some of this?
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea. Mhm.
I think that at a minimum, it would be nice to have access to the lectures, like Patrick's saying, like, you know, we have, at least I'm creating time for myself where I could go back and watch. Like, I wanted to go to a handful of the hygiene tracks, but it was always conflicted with something else that I also wanted to see. And I trust my lead hygienist to, you know, handle it. But I want to be more supportive of her in that space. And so at a minimum, it'd be nice to, you know, in my own time, go back and watch, and then I can collaborate with her. Like, well, this is what I took from this. And like, we can, you know, get on the same page and then move forward from there. And I think that, you know, I like the track idea because you can fit more into a finite amount of time. But yeah, I think that, like, through this whole process, I think I've lacked the information on the hygiene front in particular, that now I really want to go back and dig into. Like, I started listening to the Bulletproof Hygiene podcast on the way home, just so that I could be more supportive of that. So yeah, I think that maybe doing a little more together, like maybe doing so just for example, on that subject, like if the hygiene gals, you know, made a presentation in front of the big group that, you know, was enough to, you know, really lodge into the doctor's mind and the rest of the team's mind, like, hey, this is what we're about. And then, you know, still do the tracks, or I don't know, some combination of all of that. But I'd say at a minimum, just have the ability to go back, and whether we get it via, you know, Dropbox or thumb drive or something, just be able to watch the lectures.
Because I think, Lacey, some of the concern is also like, there's got to be desire to like make the summit a reason to attract people to go, right? Well, you know, and not providing all those resources and, you know, publicizing them out and getting them out there, because then anybody can have access to them. But then there's also that side of, like, you're right, there's a piece of hygiene. Like when we went to dinner, there was a discussion between Charissa and Brittany, where in particular, there was something that consistently was missing between the hygienist wanting to implement something, but them not getting the allowance by the owner or the doctor business owner to say, hey, go ahead and implement. Those are the things that I feel they should present in unity, where we're all there, we hold accountability, we make those doctors stand up, stare at them, commit to their hygiene team, like that kind of scenario. And it has to happen amongst the masterminds as well. I think that's something that in the future, we're going to do a little better, and being like, hey, maybe sometimes we need to get that doctor and their hygienist on one call because there's an interplay problem, and we've got to figure some of that out. But I think that that's part of kind of what we're talking about, is we're fearful that we start building buildings in parallel and not actually intersecting them. And that's kind of the biggest fear of these tracks, is you kind of pull some of these apart. But you're right, it's almost, there's so much content, there's no way to avoid the tracks. But there are some tracks you're like, great, everybody gets to go listen to a special speaker. whether it's the inflammation speaker, whether it's this speaker, go down the line, but those are all at the same time, so that those are interests. But direct implementation ones are maybe more in alignment or things like that. Lacey, do you have questions or thoughts on some of those things that you want to peer through? I know I'm kind of jumping ahead on some of those things.
Or no, thank you. I appreciate that. So yes, part of it is that, we can't put out content, unfortunately, in a video form, because we will have people get a hold of it that shouldn't have it and try to duplicate what we do. So I'm sure you guys understand some of that. But this is really great information to know. And maybe it is, we keep everyone in the same room and have, an inter-office relationship track, not necessarily track, but just everyone in one room, or a hygienist doctor track where everyone can get on the same page. So this gives me some really great ideas for next year. So thank you, guys.
I really
Good.
like too the format of the first day, where we all spent a lot of time together the first half of the day. And then after lunch, everybody broke up. So that concept could be cool to carry over to a second day as well, where you're doing some of these kind of high level aerial view, conceptual things with your team, with, Sharisa and Brittany, and then with Erica together as a group. And then if you want to deep dive some of the topics that they glossed over, then you have the opportunity to kind of split off and do a track afterwards. I think that would be cool. Just some feedback.
That's great.
That's awesome feedback. I think it's those little tweaks that eventually, this should not be designed with all due respect to, Craig, Pete, myself, anybody, should not be designed by them. It should be designed by the people who have doubled down on the content, right? Which in my opinion, more than anybody else, it's going to be the masterminders and those who bring their teams to the summit. But you're right, for somebody to stand up front and say, hey, this is hygiene, bulletproof hygiene. We want everybody to hold accountability. And then we may break up into more details, but if I'm assigning accountability and I'm saying, hey, yes, I'm go forth and do, it's almost like, they can go into the track and Brittany and Sharisa can stand up there and be like, do you hear what they said? They've given you the power. Now the question is, are you going to take back and implement? Let's talk about what we can implement. And so it's kind of handing off that, but giving that freedom, because if not, you all know what it's like to sit in some of those and just be like, well, yeah, that's cool, but I don't think that'll ever fly in our, you see what I'm saying? And so they almost disconnect some of that. So I think that's a really, really great idea. Any other ideas on that?
Lacey, have you ever thought about giving out a survey to the attendees and saying, what did you like? What would you like in the future? Because I think everybody's wants kind of depend on where they're at. The first time somebody's going to the summit, I was talking to somebody in the whole first section, Anna really liked it. She's heard some of that before, so it made sense and went deep. For them, they're like, I don't really know why they're talking about this. And, so it kind of depends on where you are at. And you'll never be able to probably please everybody, but, maybe send a survey out to everybody and say like, okay, what do people want?
Yeah, we have such a great tool. Like, the reason why you send out Culture Index to everybody is because, same reason why I started doing it too, is I want to know how fast to talk to them, how slow to talk to them. Are they an inductive or deductive learner? And do I talk to them with emotion or with logical? And so there's times my Culture Index, I'm more on the logical side. So there's sometimes where there was so much emotion, I was just come on, let's go. But then I'm just looking at this from the DEO has they give everybody a different lanyard based on how much production or how many offices you have. Yep. With future courses or future masterminds, we can actually learn, we can big brother this and look at how people learn. And every owner, you would put you're a logical person, you go follow this guy, or you're based on your Culture Index. And we have that at our disposal now.
No, I agree. And there's no reason not to. I will thank each of you. A lot of you were, at my track, which was awesome to have so much good feedback, because y'all gave a lot of examples to people. It's really important that someone who's up there presenting is not the only, talking head. When you've got people that are in the masterminds, have implemented it, seen the impact, given examples of like, hey, I was going to hire this person, but then it was like, well, and it's not about letting it be negative, right? Some people see, oh, weaknesses and this and that, but you all gave incredible examples. So I want to thank y'all for that, because that does create the mentorship that people need to hear and realize. I mean, it made a big, big impact. So thank y'all for that.
It was a great lecture, Dwight. You rocked it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
I think it was your lecture that was my favorite, and Bolden's real estate lecture.
Oh,
And I
that
was
was a
like,
good one too. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
want the whole weekend. If I could, I just sit in both of y'all's, like, just let you guys talk the whole time.
Well, my favorite was when I walked in, I was like, all right, we're going to try and do culture index in an hour, right? Like everybody just sit down and hold on, like, let's figure this out, because it's really hard to do. But, again, how much content can you output in that time frame? I wanted to blow through content as quickly as possible and talk about examples, because that's where people start recognizing and applying. So it was really, really cool. So.
Mhm.
All right, so let's see. We got 8 minutes left on this one. So I'm just curious, any other feedback on maybe other ideas or things that, we could do better, as far as maybe even we even talked about creating some isolated space for, new people who are interested in the mastermind, collaborating with those masterminders who have been in it before, maybe having our own little like separate lunch spot where we sit and we collaborate. Hey, if you're interested in it, let's talk. Because y'all remember from the previous summit, a lot of us got up on stage and actually gave some experiential thoughts on it and gave some reflections on it. Just kind of interested in seeing, because a lot of us were pinged to go talk to some of these interested newbies. So thoughts about that. And because I know we kind of did it on our own, we were collaborating outside on the balcony, but interested in y'all's thoughts there.
I'd be more than happy to participate in that, where something organized. Like I said earlier, I ended up kind of doing it just on the fly, and I was more than willing to and excited to. And I think it's probably pretty valuable for somebody who's kind of on the fence to, hear from any one of us.
Right.
Just because, we're all lit up from the whole experience. So yeah, if you could put some organization around it, whether it's a happy hour or lunch or whatever, that'd be awesome.
And I'm with Pat, where I would get the profiles right before and I'd be like, all right, you talk to Pat, you talk to Pat. It's like, let's align everybody. And then, it's kind of like our hope one day I think it would be fantastic to build, a little bit more of a big brother type support, big sister type. There's a lot of stuff that goes on right there. And sometimes you need that level of help. You want to still bring it to the mastermind, because there's so many different ways to, skin the cat on this one. But it's still, that's a collaboration that can be really, really impactful. So I highly, highly recommend that kind of collaboration. But I think in some ways we missed out on really promoting the concept of the mastermind to everybody, because there was so much going on. There was so much content going around. I was being a little picky. I was like, listen, this is just like step one. If you really want to get in there, I'm just a benefactor of the mastermind. I'm not technically a part of the Bulletproof team. I just love being a part of what y'all are talking about. And for me, it's like, you want to make a massive impact and change your practice. You can go home and take the 10% of what you learned at the summit, or you can hold accountability every single month to make sure change happens. That's how stuff actually works. And so we've been thinking a lot about making sure that we put in some of those efforts as well. So
yeah, I felt like there was a lot of pressure on Craig and Pete to kind of speak about it in this corner or that corner of their talk. And if they could just be like, hey, there's going to be a happy hour or a lunch or whatever, they could give their 30-second little spiel, but then they could just, delegate it to us as far as just filling in the details.
yeah, that's awesome.
Or even a booth. I wish there was a booth for a mastermind, like
We talked
somewhere
about
where
that
they
too.
could
Talked
go.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
KK brought that up. KK was like, guys, why don't y'all have a mastermind booth? I mean, she was livid about it. Because Pat, you and I have been to many a conference with like that. There is the main booth is the mastermind booth. I mean, you can sponsor all you want, but that is the main booth. And it takes a lot of us to literally stand there and be like, hey, yeah, we learned this and that. This is what it meant to me. So it would have to be manned by some of us and through experience. Yeah.
Because there's some introverted people that that will find Bolden and Spodak very daunting to come up to, or even you, Dwight, you're big name, and like for me to go up there and take your time, just like a lot of people won't do that.
And we don't want them to miss out. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
if I can be so blunt, I mean, we've got one of the cheapest masterminds in the industry. I'm going to be very, very blunt. And
Mhm.
you know, you talk about the cost and ROI, and I'm like, there's kids who just, I mean, think about Miller, think about, they're not even have a practice yet. They're just starting from
Mhm.
scratch, and they know that they need to amp and double down, you know, and make that happen. So there are different people, not just their in Colder Index, that I would love to align them to. I'd love to have somebody at the booth that's like multi-location, you know, more than 10 million, right? Versus your startup guys who's recently started the practice or built a building or gone, you know, or just love their craftsman style of doing business and they don't plan on making and growing, but they're fulfilled and happy. Like those are all the different profiles within a bulletproof masterminder. I think those should be well represented. So I think that's a really, really good perspective, because you're right. Some of these people, they don't want to interrupt. They want to go grab that one quiet spot and have a conversation about it, make it happen from an introverted aspect or otherwise, right?
Mhm.
Very
And other
cool.
masterminds, like as they get bigger, like, you know, when you're a $10 million operation and you have a startup up there, like there's disengagement whenever you talk on a public platform. So that's how my past masterminds have failed. It just got so, they're going towards their own destruction. It got so big that all of a sudden there's so much disengagement. And then your strong original guys all of a sudden split off because it's like, I'm taking time away from my family, from work, and like we're solving startup questions
That's
now.
correct. No, no.
Mhm.
And it's very, very true. And you're right. Because even when we go down to the DEO, there's going to be big conversations about, okay, well, where are you in this process, so that we have a lot of clarity when we give you your lanyard and go through it.
Yeah.
Because some people can answer the questions you need. Like, hey, if I were to walk up and be like, hey, mastermind, how many of you have had to go ahead and where were you at in recruiting your CFO? Well, freak. It's kind of a bit of a different conversation for some people, but you know, if the CEO of Heartland's there, right, a $1 billion organization all the way down, you've got a bit of a mix of dynamic. I think that there's this natural organic growth that's going on, if I can be so blunt, which is beautiful. There is this process of
Mhm.
it gets so big that it loses its fulfillment purpose and its alignment purpose. There's some of those things, but I'm with you. I think if it gets, you know, as it gets bigger, it needs to have alignment in who it is that, who's in what discussions
Yeah.
and what else. So I think that that's something that they're, you know, Pete, Craig, and the whole Bulletproof team, more importantly, they need to hear, because that means infrastructure. How we're gonna, how is that going to be maintained, right? Because there's only so many calls
Yeah.
Pete, Craig can be on. I mean, everybody can be on. What infrastructure does that look like? And usually that means ambassadors, right? You've been through that before. You can be
Right.
the ambassador because you took something from nothing to 2 million, 2 to 5, 10 to 20, whatever. And so that's
Yeah.
what it takes. But
I think that's one thing I wish we did this year, is like, I like to be graded. Like I like you to just tell me, hey, did I pass or fail? And so like, I wish in the beginning, in the beginning of Mastermind, like I'll tell you what my top line revenue is and what my net is at the end of the year. And then at the end of the year, I tell you what the value is, and then you give me a score and like, hey, like you had a 20% growth, you get an A or B or C. But not only that, like Costas in his mastermind, he'll do like leadership grade. And so like, hey, what is the value? How good is your culture and your practice? And he gives you a systemization grade, and then a P&L grade, like all that. Just something very tangible at the end of the year. Because my biggest hiccup this year was accountability for my team. Like I was the only guy coming to it because we were just all over the place. But like I had no accountability for my team. So I wish I had a grade to see like, what is my team doing at the end of the day? Are they like keeping up with this, or is it just gossip hour for them and there's no actionable items out of it?
Right. No, that's great perspective. That makes all the difference in the world too. I'll tell you, like at the end of the day, you've got to have that level of accountability. And I'll say, even from the first mastermind we did to the next one, to that, I mean, accountability increase, that's going to be its natural progression. But I'm with you. I mean, and a lot of our profiles, some of us are more vulnerable than others. We're willing to walk and be like, all right, beginning, turn in your profit and loss statements, balance sheets. At the end, do the same. Let's compare, let's figure it out, do these analyses, figure out your EBITDA growth, figure out actual net. The truth is most people probably aren't doing that on their own accord, right? So having
Right.
that accountability is actually really, really powerful, because it makes you think what you should be checking, right? And whether you're worthy to wear that bulletproof badge, right? Like Bulletproof quality practice. So that's the stuff that we definitely, it's information that we need to continue to divulge and give to Lacey, and more ideas you all have, feed them to Lacey, give her ideas about what can be, because to filter them, to organize them and put them in a place that can be more impactful. You can only imagine there's no limit to this process. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I love hearing this. Thank you. We do an intake and an outtake survey, but I love the idea of doing a grade or some type of summary at the end of that to show the growth for each of our members. So that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, if we're going to sign up for this mastermind, like it's a huge investment, and it's a huge investment on time as well. Like we're all in. So I would give all my numbers, and now Craig and Bolden don't have to give such generalized advice. And like the day I go to Bolden's, the day I go to Spodex, spend the day, he has me from beginning to when I go, and he can really coach me. And then from that, like, I mean, that would be invaluable. Like, where else would you get that ever?
Yeah. The number of people that I've seen their profit and loss statements, they've asked me to look at something and I'm like, whoa, what? You know what? I know this looks like a lot of numbers. Put the percentages on the right side, and then make them give you an operational one that says this quarter as compared to the same quarter last year. How much growth? I mean, so that you can see was this category up 1% or not? These are the things that over time, I think we can really, really hold accountability. I think that's powerful, because we all should be able to look at each other's profit and loss statements and be like, oh, great, you're struggling in this. This is getting better. This is getting worse. We're trying to work on this, but you know what? I think we need to work on this piece before, since we see clarity in the financial. Those are things that are powerful and they can make a big impact. But I think we've mostly done that amongst us, right? As opposed to kind of going at that mastermind level. But man, the sky's the limit. I mean, it's going to be fun. So needless to say, but okay. Well, our next meeting is on Monday, right? Monday night. We have another regular evening call followed by office hours. Anything else, Lacey, we've got going on?
No, I actually have the veneers webinar from Dr. Bolden that I'm putting together. So that should be out by the end of the week. Thank you all for being patient. And then we're working on crypto webinar as well. So some really exciting things coming out really soon. So just be on the lookout for some announcements from me here shortly.
Awesome. Well, what an incredible weekend. So thank you, Lacey, the whole team, and you, and the efforts of putting it together for us, because it left us on quite the high, to say the least.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Yeah. And thank
you.
you all.
You could be an official wedding planner.
That's right. God bless you.
No, I don't know about weddings, but summits, yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you all.
you.
Y'all hang in there. Let us know if you need anything. Give feedback on that Mighty Networks as we get out off here. I know you're going to post this on there for a lot of people to catch up and watch, but have an epic week, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Take care.
Everyone.